is the government gives no funding whatsoever to children with cancer. And I think this is absolutely appalling when we finance so many things abroad.
Sorry. Can you just clarify that statement? You're saying the government do not give anything towards children with cancer?
No, they don't. Not cancer charities for children.
Well, the government don't give something to the cancer charities. The government give directly to children with cancer.
Well, the government give nothing, we do.
By providing wonderful medical care. And I think that most parents of children with cancer will agree that actually the service they get from the NHS is absolutely second to none.
Quite possibly. I'm talking about the things after the aftercare, things like the hospices and stuff like that.
So what else do you expect the government to do?
Well, they should, if we're going to give all this money abroad, I think we should be putting a little bit more money into children's hospitals. They give nothing. They put it into adult hospices, but they don't put it into children's hospices.
It's not a government area, really, is it?
Well, not the point, is it?
It's a charity.
It's all part of its extension of the.
Hang on, you can't invent a charity then expect the government to support it. And in fact, they do. I mean, they give a small percentage, but it's also expected that the population actually chip in a small percentage as well.
Well, yeah, but they do. The population in this country put in an awful lot of money into different charities. But I'm just saying,
the government put into hospices, I don't know.
The government doesn't put money into hospitals.
They do into adult hospices.
No, they don't.
They do.
They don't.
They make contributions.
It's a very small contribution. Very, very small.
I'm not so sure.
Well, if you look at Woollen Hospice, for instance, here in Milton Keynes, they're looking at I forget what it is, but it's something like £7 a second or something, to survive. And the government hardly gives. I don't think the government gives them anything. Actually.
But anyway, what I don't understand, another point of these charities is they can afford to advertise on television, and they always give you, like the animal ones particularly, a cuddly toy if you support a particular animal and all this, and they send you photographs. Well, surely nobody really wants all that stuff, do they?
Sadly, the unfortunate thing is, if you do, I've subscribed to some of these charities, but anonymously, because the trouble is, once you start and they get your email or they get your address, that is it.
You're right.
They bombard you with pleas and requests and all that. It's a very, very sad state of affairs, because a lot of these charities should be funded by the government rather than have to take out the begging cans. But again, if you look at it, and if you look at the lists that the Charity Commission has actually publicised, the fact that for every pound that you put in, it works down to, in some charities, as little as sort of 15p.
Oh yeah,
actually goes to the charity. The rest of it goes, as you say, to advertising, to chief executives' salaries and all this sort of thing, and the running of the organisation.
But you've got this one, Water Aid in Africa at the moment, and whatever the public put in, the government will either match it or put a percentage of what the government contributes. Public contributes.
Maybe that's a good thing, though. But I mean, I was.
What I'm saying is, our people they seem to do more for overseas charities than they do for our own charities.
Yeah. But I was the fireworks here in Newport Pagnell last night, and in fact, it's the first time for 25 years that they've been back on. However, there was a first aid responder there, and a chap that I knew quite well. Actually, he'd been a retained fireman for 42 years. And when he left the fire brigade, he thought, well, I've got to do something. So he became what they call a first aid responder. And these, you see cars going around which are sort of like pseudo ambulance cars. And these people are first aiders, and they get to the scene of household things. They don't attend road traffic accidents, but they get to, somebody's had a heart attack in the house or fallen down the stairs or whatever. They get there first, quicker in a lot of cases than the ambulance service can do it, and they've got they've got defibrillators and bandages and supplies and all that stuff. Now that's terrific, and I'll follow. In fact, I'm going to get the guy to come on to the magazine programme here on CRMK on a Friday morning, MK Today. But what he was telling me absolutely shook me rigid, because the van that he was driving was actually supplied by a local charity, a local dealer who's very charity minded, Brian Curry.
Oh yeah.
And he supplied the vehicle. everything that this guy does, he has to pay for himself. He got £2,000 worth of equipment in the vehicle. All had been sponsored by either a local charity or the local steam masons, the local masons, Freemasons. But he's got all this gear and everything else, and he goes round, but he has to pay for it all himself. He gets nothing from the NHS. He gets no bandages, no syringes, no pills, no nothing. Not only that, he's not paid. He has to do it all for free.
Yeah, but it's a volunteer service.
Yes, it's a volunteer service.
So, it goes against the whole creed of volunteer service to get paid.
Well, it does and it doesn't, because...
hang on. Who's
got £2,000 and maybe,
well, somebody who's volunteered and is actually getting sponsorship. Yeah. This is all good stuff. This is all part of the community. Well, by the way, just for your... For your Woollen Hospice, 22% of its funding comes from the NHS.
Oh, it does it? Oh, okay.
It does indeed.
Well, just say it again.
22%.
Of what?
Roughly a fifth of the funding for the hospice.
Adult hospices.
Yeah, comes from the NHS.
Children's hospices get nothing.
Okay, all right.
Well, I don't know about that.
Oh, I do, because I've researched it, and I've been talking to a children's hospice about this.
Okay, all right. Well, I stand corrected on that one, and it's good to hear that they're getting at least some money. But again, back to the first aid.
Well, they raise $3.6 million every year.
Yeah.
The annual running costs are 4.6, and they're very grateful to have 22% of these costs met by the NHS. The remaining 78% needs to be raised from local community, and without the support and dedication and generosity of people just like you, they couldn't provide the care they do.
Oh, no, that's good, and it's. I think again, there's a certain degree of. I don't know exactly what the word is for it, but I know, for instance, when my younger brother died in a hospice, and my mother gave quite a substantial donation to the hospice, purely in thanks for making the last few days of his life pleasurable or tolerable, but. And that's what I said earlier on. She was then inundated with pleas, and they would send things that next year's calendar, and it only costs £15, and if you don't want it, please send it back to us so that we can send it to somebody who will donate £15 and all this sort of, which it's sort of almost bribery.
Yeah, well, it is. There's a lot of concern over this, because a lot of old people are donating all their money, and they're in hardships because they're donating all their money to these charities that keep on and on and on at them. Because let's not forget that these charities, many of them, their fundraising is run by private organisations who are profiting from it.
Well, yes, that's the other side of it as well. And of course, I know that fortunately places like Woollen, there's a tremendous amount of volunteers who actually go and spend a tremendous amount of time running about.
Well, I think they all are.
In 2012-13, the Department of Health granted to one children's hospice, the St Alexander Children's Hospice in Slough, 63,000.
Who did?
The government.
Well, this is new, because they never used to.
Children's Hospice in South West Little Harbour, 121,000. Another one in Elton, 121,000. In fact, 121,000 seems to be the standard for.
Well, this must be fairly recent, because it wasn't 2 years ago.
Zoe's Place Baby Hospice in Coventry, it's also 121,000. The £721,000 grant is in addition to the annual 10 million Children's Hospice at home grant. So actually, the government are chipping in quite a lot to children's
It's surprising, because this came from the Children's Hospice charities.
Unless I'm getting false news here.
Because they wanted me to write a feature about this to bring it to people's attention.
The government has committed to continue the annual £10 million funding for children's hospices.
It's a drop in the ocean, though, isn't it? And I do think that.
Yeah, but it's very different from the statement that they don't chip in anything. anything towards children's hospices.
Well, all right. So
they're chipping in £10 million a year.
So one of us can be wrong occasion, you know.
Well, I don't think that's good enough. I think you've got to check your facts before you start.
Well, I did at the time when I was involved with this.
Well, I'm just very pleased with the fact that we do live in a country where the government, as much as I dislike the current government intensely.
Oh, it's a good job because the Liberal Democrats.
Okay, they give 10 million to the children's hospitals. How much are they giving to Africa that ends up in the coffers of the corrupt leaders?
Different parts.
We always say that. It's all taxpayers' money.
Yeah, it is all taxpayers' money, but it's, I mean, we end up in a situation where you have to have different pots of money for different things. I mean, it's like saying, poor people shouldn't have a television. That's exactly what it's like, isn't it? I mean, because
I don't know.
But you shouldn't. We give poor people money to be able to feed their children, and they actually spend some of that on a television. Isn't that atrocious?
They spend it on cigarettes.
Yeah,
and drink.
Poor people shouldn't be allowed to smoke. It's it's getting out. There you go.
It comes down to different pots of money for different things, and yes, I think overseas aid is a really important thing that the government do. I probably think it's a little bit on the high side.
07790 385 385 07790 385 385 if you want to contribute into today's programme. There's 50 minutes left, and at 10 o'clock this morning we have Decades with Dave and Charlotte, and then at 3 o'clock this afternoon through till 5 it's All Sorts Weekly Showcase with DJ Digital, rhythm, soul and blue roots and all sorts of rhythm and blues and things like that. It's on from 7 until 9 tonight with Erica Gordon, and then there's a big lineup of programmes for tomorrow, which I shall go on to a little later on in today's show. Don't know whether you guys saw it this week, but I did, and apparently it pulled in viewers like there's no tomorrow as the Blue Planet 2 programme. Now, I'm a great admirer of Mr. Attenborough, Sir David Attenborough, I should say. Great admirer of him, and I'm a great admirer of his shows as well. But I'm afraid the one that I saw on Sunday left me a little cold. So
a little bit blue.
Well, I don't know. It just didn't touch the right marks. Not quite sure why and how.
I seem to support what you're saying. Actually, I thought the same.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be very interesting this week when the next episode comes on, to see whether the audience figures are as high as they were this week. I hope they do. But, it's a fascinating programme, and I find almost the best bit of it is at the end, where they tell you how they actually made several things. And how it took them 3 years to get some of the film.
I mean, these guys are sitting out on their own in a hide for days on end, aren't they? I mean, how boring can that be? And then nothing happens.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just
well, it was the most remarkable bit of television. I've seen a few bits of it the other day, and I just couldn't believe how... what I liked was the bird-eating fish.
Yes.
That was a fascinating story, wasn't it? Fish that eat birds.
It leapt out of the water.
Yeah.
It wasn't a bird-eating fish, it was a fish-eating bird.
Oh, that's right. No, it wasn't. It was a bird-eating fish.
No, it was a fish-eating bird.
Fish that leapt out of the water and grabbed birds.
Yes.
Yeah. But he said a bird-eating fish.
Oh, he said that?
Yes. I got it wrong.
Yes.
I made this is a bird-eating fish. The fish was eating the bird.
No, if you say a bird-eating fish... it is the bird that eats the fish.
Yeah, I got it wrong. What I should have said is
a fish that eats birds.
A fish that eats birds.
No, you're an author.
But the clever bit is the geometry required for doing that. So the fish is underwater.
Yeah.
The bird is flying.
Timing.
They've got to calculate the trajectory.
Yeah.
They've got to take into account displacement that you get from looking from underwater at something that's above water.
Yeah.
They've got to calculate all of that, get themselves fired up, and then leap out of the water and pluck them out of the sky. That is the most amazing feat of engineering.
Yeah, I think what grabs you by the series, though, is the fact that they find species they didn't even know existed. Plus the fact we certainly didn't know existed. But Attenborough probably does in many cases. But I mean, absolutely amazing, isn't it?
Well, if we had to get a computer to do that calculation, it would be quite a sizable computer.
Yeah.
Working very hard. And would it be able to do do it in the sort of real-time way that the fish do.
Well, nothing beats nature, does it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, but let me just, because it's a little bit like when you see the...
We're learning so much more about fish, aren't we?
Yeah, but it's a little bit like when you see the tiger or the lion chasing after, an antelope or whatever in the desert,